There was once a man who was born into a life of great luxury, a prince destined for power, comfort, and status. Yet, he left it all behind. Not for wealth, not for war, not for conquest, but in search of something far greater. He sought to understand suffering, to unravel the mystery of existence, and to find a path that could lead all beings to freedom. His name was Siddhartha Gautama, but the world would come to know him as the Buddha, the awakened one. His story is not merely history, it is a journey that mirrors our own. It is the path of questioning, seeking, and ultimately, awakening. Today, we return to the beginning, to the life of a man who transcended the self and in doing so, changed the course of human thought forever. This is the story of the Buddha, the birth of a prince. Siddhartha Gautama was born around 563 BCE in Lumbini, a region that is now part of modern-day Nepal. His birth was surrounded by signs and omens. His mother, Queen Maya, is said to have dreamed of a white elephant entering her womb, a vision interpreted as a sign that her child would either become a great king or a great spiritual teacher. His father, King Suddhodana, wished for his son to follow the path of royalty rather than that of a wandering sage. To ensure this, he shielded Siddhartha from the hardships of life. The young prince was raised within the walls of the palace, surrounded by beauty, luxury, and endless pleasure. He was given everything, a life of ease, wealth, and power, but he had never seen the world beyond the palace gates. Yet something inside him longed for more. The comfort of his world began to feel hollow, and as he grew older, so did his curiosity about what lay beyond the carefully constructed reality his father had built for him. The 4 encounters, the great realization. One day, Siddhartha ventured outside the palace walls. What he saw changed the course of his life forever. On his journey, he encountered 4 sights that shattered his illusions. An old man, his body weak and frail, walking slowly with a cane. Siddhartha had never seen aging before. He realized that all youth fades, all bodies wither. 2, a sick man, writhing in pain, suffering from disease. Siddhartha understood that suffering is unavoidable in life. 3, a dead body, lifeless and unmoving, surrounded by mourning loved ones. He realized that death comes for all, and nothing can prevent it. 4, a wandering ascetic, a monk who had renounced worldly possessions, walking with peace and purpose. This final sight stirred something deep within him. He saw that while suffering was everywhere, there was also a way beyond it. A different kind of existence, one not driven by pleasure or pain, but by something deeper. That night, Siddhartha looked around his lavish palace and saw it not as a place of comfort, but as a prison of illusion. He realized that no matter how much wealth, pleasure, or power he possessed, he too would grow old, fall ill, and eventually die. And so, he made a decision that would define his destiny, the great renunciation, leaving the palace. In the dead of night, Siddhartha left behind everything he had ever known, his royal title, his wealth, his wife, even his newborn son. He walked away from a world of certainty into a world of the unknown. For 6 years, he lived as a wandering ascetic, practicing extreme forms of self-denial. He fasted until his body was nearly skeletal, meditated in solitude, and sought teachers who might offer him the answers he longed for. But the answers never came. He saw that both luxury and extreme asceticism were 2 sides of the same coin. Neither brought true wisdom, neither led to true freedom. And so he chose a different way, a way that was neither indulgence nor suffering. The middle way, the awakening, under the Bodhi tree. One night, Siddhartha sat beneath a Bodhi tree in the town of Bodh Gaya. He vowed that he would not rise until he had found the truth. Through deep meditation, he confronted his own fears, desires, and illusions. The story says that Mara, the demon of illusion, appeared before him, tempting him with visions of pleasure, fear, and doubt. But Siddhartha remained still, unmoved. As dawn broke, he saw reality as it truly was. He realized that suffering is not random or meaningless. It arises from attachment, craving, and ignorance. And just as suffering has a cause, it also has a cure. In that moment, he became the Buddha, the awakened one. He had seen the nature of existence, and with it, the path to freedom. The first teaching, spreading the Dharma. At first, the Buddha hesitated to teach. He knew that the truth he had seen was subtle, difficult to grasp. But out of compassion, he chose to share it with the world. He traveled to Sarnath, where he gave his first teaching to 5 ascetics who had once been his companions. This teaching became known as the Dharma Chakra, the turning of the wheel of Dharma. He revealed the 4 noble truths. 1. Life contains suffering, dukkha. Pain, loss, and impermanence are inevitable. 2. Suffering has a cause, samudaya. It arises from craving, attachment, and ignorance. 3. Suffering can end, nirodha. Liberation is possible when one lets go of attachments. 4. There is a path to freedom, magga. The Eightfold Path leads to enlightenment. This was the beginning of Buddhism, not as a religion of worship, but as a path of awakening, a way to end suffering and live with wisdom and compassion. The Buddha's legacy, a path for all. For the next 45 years, the Buddha traveled across India, teaching monks, kings, merchants, and outcasts alike. He rejected caste divisions, hierarchy, and dogma, teaching that enlightenment was possible for all beings, regardless of status, gender, or background. His message was simple, yet profound. True peace is not found in wealth, pleasure, or power. It is found in wisdom and compassion. The self is an illusion. By letting go of attachment, we dissolve suffering. Reality is constantly changing. When we stop resisting change, we awaken to freedom. At the age of 80, the Buddha passed into parinirvana, the final liberation beyond birth and death. His body was gone, but his teachings, the Dharma, continued, carried by those who walked the path after him. And more than 2,500 years later, that path still calls to us. Closing reflection. The story of the Buddha is not just a historical account. It is a mirror to our own lives. Each of us, in our own way, lives inside a palace of illusion, seeking happiness in things that fade. Each of us will encounter suffering. Each of us will, at some point, ask, is there more to this life? And each of us has the same choice Siddhartha had, to turn away, or to walk the path of awakening. The Buddha did not claim to be a god, a prophet, or a savior. He simply said, I am awake. And now the question remains, are you?